welcome back to Cup of Joe, where we tackle real issues with real people. Now today on the show we have a special guest. We have Jennifer Hollett. Jennifer is launching her campaign launches today for NDP candidate in the federal election in University-Rosedale. They say this is the first time you're campaigning as a candidate, but you've worked on campaigns previously.
Yeah, I'm a former broadcast journalist. I've worked at CBC, CTV, Much Music, and it was actually covering elections and covering social issues that initially sparked my interest in politics. And 2 years ago, I made the move. I ran in a nomination race in Toronto Centre. I lost to Linda McQuaig, but joined her campaign. And I also worked on Olivia Chow's mayoral campaign.
Okay.
But this is my first time as a candidate, and it's a new riding. It's a downtown riding called University-Rosedale.
All right, so what would you say are some of the major issues facing University-Rosedale?
So I've spent a lot of time going door to door, so I can answer this question in terms of what the people are actually saying. One of the biggest issues right now is Bill C-51, opposition to Bill C-51.
Okay.
Another big one in this community is childcare, affordable, accessible childcare. A third one is public transit. This was a big focus of the mayoral campaign last year, but it's also a federal issue. But I think the top issue, downtown Toronto, is getting rid of Stephen Harper. So
really?
yeah, people say this a lot to me. They say that's one of their biggest concerns.
Fair enough. Now that's what I would think the opposition to Bill C-51. I do know there's a lot of it out there. It wouldn't have occurred to me that this area would necessarily be on top of that, or as a
I think a big reason is University-Rosedale is called University-Rosedale because of the University of Toronto. So you have a lot of students, a lot of academics, a lot of people connected to the university who are really concerned about issues like human rights, freedom, civil liberties. And
that's true.
That bill is a big threat to that. Those are the values I think that define us as Canadians. So it's been really great to see the opposition and the organizing around opposing Bill C-51.
Okay. All right. And I know that you're big on social media. I'm sure social media will play a big role in your campaign. So how do you think that social media can help with, just in politics in general, right? With connecting with people and helping, like this show, to get people paying more attention to what's happening in federal politics and such.
So I love that the word real is a big part of what you're doing on the show, because I think often politics doesn't feel real. It feels like it's something in Ottawa that happens to us. And I think new technology, data, social media is a new way for people to get involved with politics, to have conversations with candidates, with current politicians, to ask questions, to organize, and to make that connection. Because ultimately politics belongs to us, so it's what we make it.
100%.
And I don't think it should be a dirty word. That's one of the reasons I'm running.
And I think you're right on the money with that. I think that people often feel disconnected from the things that happen in politics, and it's sort of like we're watching a story play out that doesn't affect us, and then when it affects us we get very agitated about it, but it's very brief.
Well, it is about us.
It doesn't really last long because we don't make that connection, and I think you're right, we need to.
And social media gives us the opportunity to create the story rather than depending on traditional media to do that for us.
That's right. Now I would say Stephen Harper, in the budget that was released most recently, he does have a lot of investment in cities and stuff, which you could say is buying votes. It's it's a classic tactic. But what would the NDP do in terms of investment into cities and building cities? I know you talked about childcare, which is crucial. And what else would they be looking at changing or putting into the city of Toronto, specifically in Hamilton, Oshawa, all the surrounding areas?
Stephen Harper and the Conservatives are a lot of talk, and I think you mentioned that was a campaign budget, and I think Canadians know that. Tom Mulcair, the leader of the NDP and leader of the official opposition, said something very controversial for a guy not from Toronto. He said Toronto is the most important city in Canada, and that's because a strong Toronto, strong cities means and translates into a strong Canada. So that means an investment in infrastructure, not always a sexy topic, but that's public transit. Absolutely, daycare is key. It's very difficult for parents, especially for moms, to find daycare, and then affordable daycare. We have a $15 daycare plan. The other thing is support for small businesses, because that's twofold. We're looking to support small businesses by reducing their taxes, but also give them the opportunity to create good, strong jobs for Torontonians, especially coming out of university. You know, students are wondering what work is going to look like. And the other piece is affordable housing. It's becoming really expensive to live in cities, especially in Toronto, whether you're trying to own or just even rent. And that starts with a national housing strategy.
All right, fair enough. And so I was going to ask, why is Thomas Mulcair the right person for the job?
Well,
but you
yeah,
sort
and
of answered that.
I think that it's it. I mean, he has the experience, he's principled, and I think you see what leadership looks like when he stands up to Harper on a variety of issues, and we've really seen it on Bill C-51.
I agree, and we did get into that a little bit. We've discussed Thomas Mulcair on the show before, and I think you're right. He's a tempered guy. He does, his responses are measured. He seems to be a good leader, or to demonstrate good leadership in the way that he handles the Prime Minister, et cetera. Yeah. So, how can we get a hold of you? How can people want to volunteer for you or work on the campaign?
Yeah, I love it. This is the plug. So it's jenniferhollett.com. I'm on Twitter at jenniferhollett. And just reach out. I'd love to start a conversation. And I think this is a critical year for our country.
I agree with that, for sure. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
All right.